Okay, welcome to the Stellified podcast. Got a wonderful guest tonight, Mike Martin. And Mike Martin has a fabulous channel called My Dark Explorations. Mike is, I've been trying to kind of bridge the 3D to the esoteric a little bit during my time of starting Stellified channel. And I think you're the perfect man to kind of help explore, as you've been doing, the astral and beyond, because we generally only know what we see, feel, hear, touch in our five sense reality. And you've gone a hell of a lot deeper than most people that I've come across. So I know that we've talked off camera and you repeat yourself quite a lot, but if you could, for just my listeners, just have a little bit on how you got started in this exploration.
Okay. Well, first, I'm going to start off with saying I'm just a regular person, just like everybody else. I work a 40-hour job, have a family, everything, just about what everybody else has been doing their whole life. What I did is when I was young, I had a lot of really bad nightmares and almost realistic nightmares. And then I had some other experiences that I didn't understand. And this was through my early years, and probably around my teen years, I kind of just put that behind me and just kind of moved on, because at the time I was growing up in the 70s, that wasn't anything that wasn't an acceptable social-ish, conversation, especially for a kid. So as I got older, my early 20s, I discovered astral projection. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. I really want to check it out, because that really piqued my interest. That for me was like the top of my interests at that point. When I read about it, it just floored me. I read about it in Robert Monroe's Journey Out of the Body book. So then from then on, I tried some of his techniques that he had mentioned, and they didn't really work that well. And the technique that I ended up settling on was, because I had been doing dream documentation for many years, to try to figure out what my dreams meant to me. I was really good at remembering dreams and writing everything down. So I thought to myself, well, maybe since this has something to do with dreams, what I'm going to do is ask myself many times during the day if I'm dreaming or awake. So what I would do was I'd look at a solid object like a car or a person or whatever. I'd look at it briefly, turn away, look at it again. And if it had not changed, which it would change in the dream state, then I would know at that point that I'm awake. And I got to the point of doing that, I don't know, could maybe up to 50 times a day when I was really into it. I was doing this for months. Approximately, I did this for about 11 months, hoping that somehow that would cross over into my dreams, and that I would question myself in a dream, then discover it. And then once you're at that point, because you're using your dreams as a gateway to the astral, at that point that I would become lucid within a dream and fully conscious, I would tell myself within my mind that I wanted to have an out-of-body experience. And that's the way it was supposed to work. So I ended up becoming successful. I was awake in my dream, and I immediately thought, I want to have an out-of-body experience. I was whisked out of my dream into the astral, which basically the astral was just like being here. I was on the side of my house, hovering above one of my vehicles. It was wintertime. I knew it was cold, but I wasn't cold. But I knew I was in two places simultaneously. I was out there and I was in bed. So I knew there was no question in my mind what was going on, because I was fully lucid, fully conscious.
Okay.
So I went through a bunch of different questions in my mind about, okay, what's different? My vision's different. Your visual is almost 360 degrees. How I felt, what I thought, how I was thinking, just different things about, because it's my first time that I remember. After that experience, I realized that that is what was happening to me as a child, but I just didn't know. Those were uncontrolled. This was my first, what I would consider controlled out-of-body experience. And this was back in probably around 1990 is when that happened.
Yeah.
Previously, I'd been doing a bunch of other things too, but this was my main focus. So at that point, I kept going through the motions of trying realized I was dreaming, becoming awake in a dream. And it took several months again, even though I'd been successful. And that's when the portals began. I didn't know what they were. I got a vision. I basically become lucid conscious within a dream. And before I even had the chance to tell myself that I wanted to have an out of body experience, I was whisked out of the dream in bed. So basically, I'm laying on my side, awake in bed with just my eyes closed. I'm not in the astral. This has nothing to do with the astral because I can move my fingers and toes. If you're having an astral projection, you're not in control of your physical body, because at that point your consciousness has transferred into your physical body.
Yeah.
I mean, to your spirit body, which means it's no longer in control of your physical body, so you can't move it. You can't move your physical body until you return, your consciousness is returned back into your physical body. That's so I knew immediately I'm not in the astral. So I'm laying there, I'm seeing this, oval image, which in my visual is like on the astral, you can see almost 360 degrees. So this portal image was huge. I mean, I don't know how big it would be, but if you're looking at it, it takes up almost your whole visual. And I'm seeing this moving picture, looks like a video screen, but in an oval image with the border around it, and it's of a city by the water. And I could see the waves moving and everything. And I didn't know what it was, but I also didn't know what the border around it, there was writing in there, and I didn't know what it was because I couldn't recognize the lettering. Looked more like shapes and hieroglyphics or something than it did lettering that we would consider, what we would see here. So I'm sure it was a description at some point, but I don't know what it was. So I'm sitting here watching it, trying to figure out, what is this? Why am I experiencing this? What does it mean? You got a trillion questions going on in your head, but you're just trying to figure out getting a bearing on it. And that lasted about 30 or 40 seconds, and then it pixelated, went away. And I opened my eyes. I could have opened my eyes at any time, but I didn't want to open my eyes because I was afraid that if I did that, then I would have disconnected from whatever experience that I was experiencing at the time. So over time, every time I tried to realize, I was realizing I was in a dream, I would be moved into back into bed, and I would see these what I eventually found out were portals. And originally they had the oval shape, and then after about the second or third one, they just took up my whole peripheral vision. So basically, it's like looking through a window that's bigger than what you can see. It's like what I eventually realized is what a portal is. It's an opening between, you would say, two places. So if, for instance, I was seeing somewhere in New Jersey, just pick New Jersey, say a house in New Jersey, and that's where I was going to see, then it will be like me standing right here, and then an opening in space-time between me and that room, and I can see that just as if I'm standing there. So a portal is a connection between two or more places simultaneously, and you can use it for just visual, or you can use it for travel or communication. So these portals basically prove, without a shadow of a doubt for me, that everything occurs within the same space. We just see space-time as something, it's a physical attribute because we have to deal with it on a daily basis. But in reality, everything and everywhere is in this same place, because in order for a portal to open it up between two places and they're in the same space, that means that it's not that we're in two different spaces, we're in two different frequencies, basically, is what it is. So when we travel between places, we have to physically understand something between A and B. So when we do this, we are going through a physical process. But when we're non-physical, that doesn't exist.
Is there any point when you were doing this early doors that you were frightened? Is there anything that you came across that was alarming to you, or were you comfortable?
Well, no, there was no. As what I was doing is I was always experiencing these portals through at the what was happening is, okay, there was never anything that was threatening. Okay, the only
Hmm.
thing that I ever have experienced that what I would consider threatening would be in the dream state, which is connected
Okay.
to the astral. Other than that, so what I discovered through these portal connections were sometimes I would rarely experience things here on what I would consider the physical plane. I would usually see things beyond, like two-dimensional worlds or landscapes that wouldn't be earthly type landscapes. I was seeing what I would call places that were not earthly types. Or if they
Yeah.
were, they were probably related to some kind of an alternate reality. But I would see sometimes beings, but they would usually be cloaked with a hood over their head, so I couldn't see them. And I
Wow.
knew that they could see me because they would move out of my vision, or
Yeah.
the move out of the way that the opening. So if the opening say 30 foot wide, they would move out of that area so that I couldn't see them. So there
Okay.
was a lot of that going on, but never was any threatening things were happening. So what would happen is I would basically wake up in a dream, and then I'd be transported out of that, and then I would have the portal experiences. So basically, I was in bed.
Yeah.
And basically, I would classify that state of mind as closer to the hypnagogic state as anything else, because obviously, I'm still somewhat connected to the dream mind activity. I'm in between waking and sleeping. Even though I'm
Hmm.
completely awake mentally, I believe that's why these episodes only lasted for so long, 30 to 40 seconds or whatever, because at that point I was more out of that state. But I could hold on to it longer. And another thing is, when the portals are open, they do consume a portion of my energy so that I could only utilize them so many times in a week, say, or in a couple days. So yeah, none of that was ever happening. So I go along and these are happening, say maybe, I don't know, 15 years into it or more. I'm just recording everything, I'm documenting everything I'm experiencing. But really, there's not much movement in the way of me discovering much or interaction. There wasn't that much available. I was learning things from there, like I was learning that I could see through the eyes of other beings, which took me a while to realize that, because you're not in control, you're just seeing through that. And several times I had those experiences, and after many, many times um, of going to the same place and in the same space, I finally realized it was probably somebody with maybe dementia that was older, that I was seeing things from this, what I would say, living room. And then I started seeing it from different viewpoints. So if I see it straight on here, then next time it would be on the side, like somebody's laying on their side. So I'm like, why am I seeing this from, looks like somebody's laying on their side? Well, that's what was happening. And then I was seeing through the eyes of other people that were in crowds. So I know
Wow.
that there wasn't some huge portal opening in a crowd because everybody could see it. Because what I eventually found out was, if I see something on the other side that's, say, 30 foot wide and 30 foot tall, like this huge, they can see that much of on my end as well. So what I'm
Okay.
seeing is on their end, they can see on my end. So I knew
Yeah.
that if I'm in a crowd and I'm looking at something, that I have to be seeing through somebody else's eyes based on the perspective and the position of what I'm seeing, and the fact that everybody else would be able to see me as well as I could see them. So that wouldn't work. So over time, I thought, well, there's got to be another way. Well, I kind of discovered it. Was in a long driving process of work every day back and forth, and I realized there was something in the daydream state or behind it that was going on. So I investigated that. It took me over a year to figure it out, what was going on. And then I realized there was something. So your daydream is here, and then behind that daydream over here is what's really going on behind the scenes. So I found out that what we're doing is, subconsciously, we're communicating with other dimensions or other alternate realities on a daily basis. We all are, probably at night too. I just haven't
Hmm.
seen that. but I have seen with the daydream state. And the dream state and the daydream state are very similar when it comes down to the level of mind, the frequency of your mind during those two times are very similar between the daydream and the dream state. So what I did was I started to duplicate my process at nighttime versus what was happening in the daydream state, and I saw that there was something going on behind the daydream. So you're watching, say, yourself riding a bike in your daydream, or you're driving a race car here, and behind here you're actually listening or communicating with another dimension or alternate reality, living through another life. So I started experiencing that, and then I documented. What I originally found out is I knew it was something was happening, but as soon as I came out of the daydream state, I knew there was something there, but I couldn't retain it, because once you cross, what I did is, because I questioned my reality, is my subconsciousness was going to this one area behind the daydream state. So what I did is I tagged my consciousness along with that, and then when it came back through the veil, it erased all my data from what I had absorbed during that experience. And I realized the veil was kind of like taking a hard drive through a magnetic field. So what I would do is I just kept going through it and back and forth, and I kept, over time, I kept doing it over and over, to the point where I was able to finally retain the information, what was going on behind that veil, to all of us. So I realized we're going to other dimensions where there's communications going on. I thought it was going to be some valuable information. It was usually just like something you'd hear, a conversation with somebody maybe you knew or whatever. There was nothing of value that I found there. Sometimes they will communicate to you that, yeah, this is you're doing well or whatever, but whatever. I don't buy into a lot of that crap, because over time I realized that every being everywhere, whether they're human or not, they have their own agenda, and there's no way that you can know what that means. You have no idea what their plan is. They could tell you something, but that doesn't mean that's what they mean. That's just a way to get you to do or to be something that they need from you. So I learned that quickly on. A couple times I was told that, if we can show you how to keep those portals open, which does consume energy from me. And I'm like, well, that's a red flag, because I don't trust your idea behind that, because this just doesn't make any sense. So
interesting. I mean, were you alone in this kind of this journey that you were on? Because obviously you made these decisions earlier on to have this exploration yourself. Did you have any friends or family that were kind of interested in what you were doing, or were you just purely, this is my task, this is my journey right now?
Early on, when I started the out of body, I tried to get in. I was getting into it, and I shared it with my wife at the time. We were just newly married. She doesn't have any interest in this at all, and at the time, she was pretty against it, because she was always concerned, maybe like, if you go out of body and somebody else can come in your body, and and it's just like, no, that's not going to happen. But she didn't really like it, so I just kind of kept quiet on it. I didn't really have anybody to share it with, because I had nobody that I knew that has similar interest. I went through the process over the years. Like I visited like some groups like the Theosophical Society and stuff like that. But there was never any really, I don't know, there was never any anything that really clicked with me. So I just always worked on my own. And then I just got used to it. And I really didn't tell anybody about anything. When I first came out, a couple of years ago with my first book, and then I started doing interviews, and I think it was 2022 or whatever, I hadn't just discussed it with anybody other than maybe a couple of people that have been around me my whole life. And none of them really taken interest in it. So for me, I wasn't sure what was, how it was going to be, how people were going to accept it, or whether they were or not. I guess it didn't really matter. I guess it's because the whole amount of information I have to share with people is either, it's up to them whether to accept it or to utilize it or not. It's up to them, but it's for the good of other people. So And that's at least
Mm.
in my opinion. So, but no, nobody ever really
Yeah,
took
yeah.
an interest. I tried working with people in the past and didn't ever work out. So,
Really? Oh, right. Okay. So you became a master, really.
nah,
You
I
basically
wouldn't call
just
it
dove
that.
in there and became
I'm just type I'm just the type of person that when I get if something piques my interest, then I just go for it. I mean, I'm just the type of guy who just
good for you.
bulldozes through. If you got a roadblock, then and I've had so many roadblocks in the past, and I've been
Yeah.
like stuck in something where there's no answer, and I just don't know what to do. I mean, when you're kind of working on your own, you don't have anybody to turn to. So I just figure, you know what? Eventually, I'll either get an answer or whatever. But I'm just going to keep moving forward. And as I did that, I just kept going through the motions of I would just keep going back and trying to get information and trying to see what more that I could do or what more that I could access and what more that what was there anything meaningful behind it. And finally, over the because what happened is I was having those nightly ones, and I finally said, "Well, I have to get off my ass and do something about this because it just keeps coming back to me, and I have to make something of it, or just try to find out why I'm having these, because it doesn't do me any good. It doesn't do anybody else any good if I don't come to some conclusion based upon what's going on." And that's when I started investigating the what I call the glimpses, which is through the daydream state, and that was probably about I don't know, maybe 13 years ago. So since then, I just been, and then finally, I got to a point in like 2021 or something where I said, you know what, there has to be some meaning behind this that I can share globally for people. So not just for what it means to me, but what it means for other people, and how can I
Mm.
correlate to what this how this would be of value to others. So I began to question everything. I went through everything, and I questioned myself to the point of I was just like, I don't even know if I'm going to continue with this, because if you question yourself, it becomes like a cycle that everything just means absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So I got to that point, and I finally said, okay, I'm going to write this book, and then it should kind of mellow out because I'm trying to put it in perspective. And when I did that, I rewrote, and finally came out with something that I believed that was beneficial and how it would affect and help other people. And that's where
Great.
I'm at right now.
Yeah, finding some kind of solutions to why and what and what we can do about it, really. I
Right,
mean, that.
right. And go ahead.
So go on, Mike. You were going to say, go on.
Because what happened? I'm having all these experiences, and I see these beings and what they are, and never once I didn't feel threatened, and never once did I get any information that would be of value
Okay.
to really myself and anybody else. That like no free energy, no how to help make the world a better place or anything else. It was always generally based upon the focus was on me, on what they think I should do, or just basic information that was trivial, just like it was a basic conversation.
Mm.
And so what I did is I started digging
Yeah.
deeper. And as I started, because at first when I first started going there, it was a big deal. There was a lot of beings there, and they're all, wanting to get me under their wing. And I quickly figured out this is kind of like a sales pitch. If you're the new guy in on the block, they want to sell you or get you under their wing, and they want you to follow kind of what they say. And I'm like, I don't play that game. I'm here to absorb and learn and then experience and go from there. And so I started going on my own. And when I started going my own more and becoming curious and inquisitive, then things drastically changed for me on there, because at that point I was no longer someone that was malleable. I was somebody who was more independent
Mhm.
and willing to and put forth the effort in order to figure out what's going on. So, so we
Regarding the
get to this
beings,
point,
Mike. Sorry,
huh? What was that?
sorry. Could I ask regarding the beings that you see, the entities that you see? They did you recognize these entities regularly? Did you like say an individual entity you would come across that person or that being regularly? Could you strike a relationship up with this kind of entity, or is it different every time?
It seemed to be different every time, and this is where I came to realize that um, I believe what I was always seeing in general was the fact that they had created an image for themselves based upon what they thought that I would feel comfortable with, as well as a background. So I'm going
Right.
to these non-physical places where they create a grandiose, what I would say, production so that it would be more acceptable to me. And then they go over things that I really don't find interesting or wouldn't be of value to anybody else. And so as
Mhm.
I'm doing this over, and when I'm talking about over and over, hundreds of times, so I'm seeing this over and over, and it begins to get very, very boring. It's very just like I'm coming over here for this. I mean, there's more to this, but then I'm also experiencing on sometimes these alternate realities where I'm I'm there and I'm someone else. I'm someone there. I'm not just me watching or listening to these beings. I'm me. I'm not me. I'm someone else playing a part um, in that societal place. So I could
Right.
be sitting at a dinner table as a father figure. I'd assume as a father figure, and then this whole family sitting at these tables, and we're all having like a dinner time conversation. And I'm just trying to figure out who am I, where am I, what am I? Just because it's almost like I don't know. Like I guess that show that you used to have where this guy would travel in time and just end up in these different bodies, and you have to figure out where he's at. Well, that's kind of
Quantum
how I
leap.
felt, huh?
Quantum leap.
Yeah, quantum leap, and I felt
Yeah.
kind of like that, but I didn't have weeks or days or to figure it out. I was like maybe a minute or a couple minutes, and there's another thing there. So what's happening is I'm when I'm through this daydream state or whatever, what I call glimpses, my consciousness is traveling through utilizing these portal connections, and that's what we all do. Our consciousness travels over there, and we're experiencing it as either us or another being, and there is no time. There's no time frame there. So when I say, oh, it could be a couple minutes, it could be I don't know 5 seconds here and seem like a lot longer there. I'm just guesstimating based upon what the events that I can see that I experience. I could just guesstimate. It could have felt like an hour, could have felt like 2 hours. It could have really been a few minutes here. I don't know
Mm.
because there's no way to compare one for the other because there's nothing there. And also, everything is done telepathically. There's no speaking over there. There's nothing related to speaking. It's all mind and that sort of thing. And which is funny because if that wasn't our natural state, I didn't have to learn how to communicate telepathically. Well, that means that's that's a normal
Right.
thing that we should do. And I didn't have to really learn how to do the portals. That's a natural thing too. But yet we need to learn how to speak as physical beings, and we need to learn how to walk, and we need to learn how to talk. But all this is natural here. So I'm like, this is all natural stuff that's going on. What we're doing in the physical is completely not natural. So I'm going through these processes and I'm learning that this is more of a natural state than our physical bodies and that sort of thing. And we're all doing this. So what's happening is we're here and nobody wants to talk on other places wants to talk about what's happening here in the physical. They don't want it's almost like they're being blocked from mentioning it and it's something you just don't talk about. They don't want any connection with this physical thing because obviously that's the red flag for them. So we're basically here. We're here with all these other connections going on, but yet we're trapped within this physical system. So we have a physical body and we have a spirit, and we have so our physical bodies on the earth plane, the 3D plane, and we have a spirit body on the astral plane, and then we have
Mhm.
a soul on the mental plane, and they're all connected by a cord of sorts. And what happens is our consciousness,
Okay.
which is the us, it can go into the physical, it can go into the spiritual body, and it can go into the soul. And when it goes into either one of those, it animates, and it consciously animates them. Now, the subconscious can control them, any one of those three. But once the consciousness moves there, then we're lucid within those bodies. So I call the three body system a trap. Those are all traps, because you can't go, if you're in the physical, can't go into the astral with your physical body. You have to be in the spirit body, and spirit body can only stay within the astral. But then the soul can only go within the mental plane. So they all have their three places that they can go, and neither one of them can go within the other. So those are all basically, you're trapped within that system. And then the subconsciousness oversees those three bodies, and it can animate those bodies individually, and it does animate our physical body a lot of times. So if you go into say you're driving in a long trip, and you could say, I don't remember those last 30 miles. I don't remember it. Well, your subconscious was going to control it. Your consciousness moves into the back seat. Your subconsciousness controls it. Well, your subconsciousness oversees all of these three body systems, these three locales, what I call them. And it basically connects with all these other. So the subconsciousness looks over and it connects with each one of us, and it can control everything, and it controls the whole atmosphere of what's going on around us. This whole ether-based network is what I call it. So basically everything's looking over us. And one of the things that I came up with is one of the ladies who was doing past life regressions. I can't remember her name. I think it was Doris something. And she was doing that. Yeah. Yeah. And I was listening to some of them. I go, that's interesting. That really kind of connects some things with me, because she was speaking with somebody, and they were, I don't know, say it was Einstein or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Said that one of their things was Einstein, one of their past lives. And then that person couldn't talk anymore for some reason. So she went to somebody else, and that supposed Einstein came through to that person, and then it came through a third, now like a fourth person. I'm thinking to myself, well, that really makes sense, because the past life thing is, most of it is just a bunch of crap anyways, because we're getting all that stuff back at night when you're dreaming. You're getting filtered information. You're not getting the information that's really happening. It's more of a programming of control at night. And when the subconsciousness is all up here, and she goes from one person to the next person to the next person, the subconsciousness is like a puppet master. It controls the subconsciousness in each body. So that same entity, or that same Einstein or whatever, can be controlled within each person easily, because it's the same mentality connecting with each one of them. So obviously it all comes through, and she was buying right into it. And I'm thinking to myself, well, why wouldn't you question that? Why wouldn't you question these things that happen? People don't have a tendency to question what's going on. But if you kind of look at it from an overall viewpoint, from 100 feet, you can see that, there's something going on here that is just, it's just too obvious, So I was like, okay, well, that makes sense why that works out that way. And I've seen this, what I would call the subconsciousness at work, because I'm tagging along with it through the daydream state. And I can see how it works, how it utilizes things, how it makes connections. So, and that's what I learned from. So I'm like, okay, well, the subconsciousness, my personal belief, is what I would call the enemy within, because it's not just an individual piece, but it's also part of the global piece of what's going on, the global control system that's going on around us. So we're in an earth prison, and I would call the astral nothing but the prison yard, because when people leave earth in their spirit body to go to the astral, they think, okay, well, I've escaped, but you're only still within this certain range. The astral is only still this big, whatever it is. You're not going to get past the astral in that spirit body. So you're going to get spirit guides, and you're going to get all, it could be an angel, it could be a devil, it could be grandma, it could be your cousin or your brother that died, whatever. Those figures are going to be whatever you would want them to be, or whatever you would expect them to be. And they're going to treat you and that the way that you believe you need to be treated. Like they're going to tell you that, oh yeah, we're here to help you, and we're going to do this, and if you just do this, we can do that. And I thought to myself, well, if you guys are so great, these spirit guides are so great, how can we have all these missing children in the world, and all these tortured children, and all these people living in poverty, and all these people, all these wars and stuff like that? Well, if we had all these psychics that are supposedly have all these spirit guides, then why do we have all the problems that we do? It's because the spirit guides, or what we call the spirit guides, are just other entities that can be whoever they want to be. They're just here to keep the agenda on Earth moving in the same pattern it's been moving on for, I don't know, for an eternity.
Mm-hmm. That's
So
interesting. Sorry, Mike, because we've got a bit of a lag, haven't we? So if someone's passed away and they've left their physical body, and then they go into the astral, the chances are they're going to be then manipulated. This is what I've heard, manipulated to come back in that respect then. So they're going to have an entity, a spirit guide, if you like, an angel or a family member coming to them and going, well, you need to go back, kind of thing, or you know what I mean? And this is what I've heard, is this is why there's the incarnation loop, the reincarnation loop, where people are having to come back into this physical realm, and we're being constantly having our energy taken from us. From, in a Gnostic view, they say the archons are constantly draining our energy, and we're kept in this loop all the time. Is that something that resonates with your experiences?
yeah, I mean, when people go into the astral, doesn't mean whether they died or whatever happens. If you whatever you see on there, whether it's a family member or not, it's not them. Never was them. I mean, when somebody else dies, they move on somewhere else, back into the recycling process. What I tell people is, we are basically energy sources. We are light. That's our normal. We're intelligent consciousness. We have no mass generally. That's what we are. And we're surrounded by a darkness that absorbs our light, that lives off of our light. So as we produce energy, that darkness absorbs that energy. That's the whole purpose of us being here within this, what you call earthly realm, or earthly, astral, whatever. They all perform the same thing. When I was a kid, what was happening is I would be placed inside of these dream states,
Mm-hmm.
and basically tortured through that, in that process, in order for me to release energy, whether it was through fear or whatever. They were absorbing that energy from me, and that was the whole purpose behind it happening to me. And as I got older, not long after I discovered the glimpse state, is when these nightmarish things started happening to me again. I'm like, this is ridiculous as an adult. So I learned from it. I was able to learn from what was going on, why it was happening, and how I could combat the fact that it was happening. So what it would do is this darkness would start to enclose in on my dream, and then I knew it was going on, and then I could feel the energy rise in my body, as almost like if you become aware of your situation, the energy will, almost like the hairs on your back of your neck, stand up. Well, over time, time after time, I was being desensitized with those dreams, and eventually I got to the point where it doesn't affect me anymore. I know it's coming. I welcome it. Come on, face me. Let's do it. And then I end up facing it. And I didn't show any fear, or I was independent. I was self-reliant, and I faced it. I turned my back on it and walked away, because at that point, there was absolutely no fear in that situation or in that moment that it could feed off of. Therefore, there was nothing there that it needed me for. It couldn't absorb anything from me. I was pushing it away. So as I go through this process of everything happening and comparing what's going on with me in the non-physical and everything else, and I begin to realize what's really happening. Some people call it loosh. Other people, say the archons or whatever, the way the system is set up. Now, I understand a portion of what I would call darkness, how it believes or how it thinks or how its perspective, because I've been exposed to it so many times. And that's how I kind of come up with what's going on, so that I get kind of a third perspective in order to be able to understand what's going on. But yeah, the whole system that we're set up in is very manipulating to the point of beyond mastery. Now, because people, what happens is, just like when people are in the physical and then they go to the astral, they think, oh, I've escaped.
Mm.
I got out. I'm good. I don't need to worry about it. And when I die, I'm gonna not buy into it, and I'm gonna be cool, and I'll get out of this mess. Okay, that's one of the first things that people buy into, believing that at some point the escape is just around the corner. Well,
Yeah.
that's not the case. The case is that it's layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. So as you begin to go to the next layer where you think, oh, I've got it, I've done it, I've gotten past it. So then you go to the next layer. Oh, I've gotten past it. Now there's more and there's more and there's more. So what's happening is, we're always believing that around the next corner is going to be the place where we're going to be able to get into it. So, anyways, I got to a point where I realized that, okay, it's more than just getting to that next point. It's more than just doing the next thing. It's more than just believing, because we're always being sold on more, on something else. As we all buy into it, we're bought into another level and another level and another level.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I discovered is, through time and through experience, I discovered that in order for us to get out of the system, the only way that we're going to, I actually got an answer. The solution is, instead of distributing and giving away our energy, we can absorb the energy from them and take our energy back. Because if
Oh,
there's
wow.
nothing here for them to receive, then there's
Yeah.
no reason for them to have it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Makes sense.
Because we're no good to somebody. If we're not expelling energy, then there's no reason for them. There's nothing here for them. We have to
Okay.
take it back and make sure there's nothing here. So what we want to do is, we want to hack the system from the inside and absorb our energy and the energy that they have taken from us back. And that's what I did in one of the videos on my channel. And then I support that information and other ways to do it and get out of the game. And in a couple of my books, and I've made audiobooks, so they're all on my channel as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll make sure I put links to those as well, Mike, so we can put them in the show notes and people can access that material.
Okay.
It's it's a great journey what you've gone on, because this is going to open up a lot of doors for people, because a lot of people feel they are trapped. A lot of conversations I've had over the past few months on my podcast, they feel they are trapped, and how do we get out of here? And figuring out a solution would be, say, recapitulation of my life. So when you have this review that you apparently have when you passed away, that you can at least try and avoid it. But like you were saying, it doesn't matter what you do on that level, you're still gonna have a task against you. Really, you're gonna still have that problem. In terms of your experience, then, you're saying there's an astral, and is this constant then levels? Is it forever? I mean, it's like, it sounds exhausting, really, that you keep going through these levels. I mean, where does it end? Does it ever end?
Well, a lot of people believe that a lot of what I do is on the astral, which is not. The dream state stuff is basically on the astral, but everything else is different dimensions or alternate realities, and those are beyond the astral. Those are not within a body. Now, my consciousness can leave and return, or connect and return, but it has to return back. But I'm not on the astral levels. I'm beyond that. So I'm beyond the astral. So that's where the separation is. A lot of people don't understand that it's not the astral. So what it is you're going past that. You're going through this veil and you're going beyond that, and you're getting in there, and that's where the root of a lot of the information could lie, and a lot of the experiences could lie. But overall, it's it's basically getting out of the system, but at some point it's still got control of the system, still has control of it.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult. And it's really difficult to understand the manipulation, the various forms of manipulation, and how much we are manipulated. And when we're manipulated to this certain level, at a certain degree, it becomes to the point where you're like, I really don't, I really am not, you think you know, and then you're really not aware of just how far back it goes, because
Mhm.
you're being manipulated here, and then here, and then here, and then here. And like I said, every time you go past a level, you believe that you've kind of gotten beyond that peak, but it's just you've reached another level of that level of manipulation, because when they manipulate you, you buy into things and you build your foundation of understanding and beliefs on this. And when you do
Mhm.
that, you know, and then when you find out something is wrong or not right, then it starts to fall apart, your foundation crumbles. And then you got to kind of rebuild what your thoughts are on, and what your experiences will base your beliefs on experiences rather than what somebody else tells you. And once you begin to build a newer foundation, it takes time in order for that to happen. But be prepared that anything that you believe, or the concepts, could be wrong, and at any time you might have to start rebuilding again. So it's really difficult. So that's why you try not to buy into too many things, but know the basics of what to really believe in and what not to believe in. Because if somebody else is telling, or if there's a mass of people telling you to believe something, then you know it's probably wrong. The majority of beliefs are completely wrong, especially if they're popular.
And that kind of relates or mirrors very well onto the physical plane and the reality that we're in currently, isn't it? You know, with religion, with politics, with anything mainstream, effectively, people buy into that, and you've got the hive mind situation, which obviously, you know, they play onto our subconscious very well on this level, don't they? And that's just the physical people that are doing that. And my question would be, Mike, and would you have you explored this, where say these elitist types, these globalist types that are constantly working with the occult, constantly manipulating humanity to keep them in fear, to keep them in a low vibration, are they working with entities on different realities then to keep us in this fearful loop?
Yeah, I mean, what happens is, if you've got a system, I would say most of what resides in the planning and everything resides probably within the astral realm. That's where a lot of the entities would probably most likely be. And then everything kind of funnels down with this. But in order for you to be able to make changes at a physical level, you have to have people on the physical level in order to follow those, to make those commands. So if you say, okay, well, in order for us to do this, then we need to have people at the top to do that. So they bring
Mhm.
in people and they get them to the top, and then they make, they're going to be rich, or they have ideas on how to get rich, and have the ability to put themselves in a position where they could make these commands.
Mhm.
But no matter how much money they have, or how much power they have, we have the ability to stand up and be individuals and say, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not following any rule that promotes my demise.
Yeah.
So what's happening is, they can only do so much. Even if you had 10,000 individuals that are working against our system, if the people underneath them, because they can't do all those jobs, if the people underneath them don't follow their rules, then it'll never happen. Well, our system will never be where it's at if you don't have other people following orders to do it.
Yeah.
People are have A lot of people have to try to make our world worse and work towards that in order for it to be in that situation. Whether they can be bought off, most of them can be bought off or bribed or manipulated in some other fashion. But a lot of people have to be in on it in order for it to work. Now they could just say, well, no, I'm really not doing that much. So I really, it's not going to hurt anybody, blah, blah, blah. And that's what everybody gets into that same mindset. They've allowed themselves to believe that what they're doing isn't so bad. So they do it, or because they can make a better living, or they can have a better home or something. So the only people that we really have to blame for the situation that we're in is ourselves. Because no matter how much manipulation and how much power is presented over us, we consider over us, it still can't make us do things that we know is wrong if we decide that. Because if you have a good system of standards, then and you say I won't step past this, and you don't, then it just can't continue. But people have allowed themselves, and they do allow themselves to do what's not in our best interest for personal gain. So, it's really not that difficult to manipulate people if they'll buy into it. But if you have a lot of independent, self-reliant people, then that doesn't work that well. And that's why I tell people, you're in the game, you bought into it, and as long as you keep following those same rules that you've allowed to happen in your life, place isn't going to get better. People say, well, how's this world going to get better? It's only going to get better if you start making it better. You have to change your ways in order for it to get better, because they can't accomplish their goal without our help. And right now they have a lot of our helps, of a lot of us helping right now. So, there's no magic button. There's no magic pill to take. There's no magic anything. Nobody's going to save us. No, aliens aren't going to come down and do it. Jesus isn't going to do it. Nobody's here to save us. And I thought about it too, really. I go, even if there was some alien race that would be willing to help, well, first of all, there would have to be something for their benefit in order to put their necks on the line. Why would they want to do that? And the second thing is, they thought, well, if you go out and save them, they're just going to put themselves back in the same hole they're in again, because they haven't changed their way of thinking and their way of belief. They're still bought into the same crap that's keeping them in the same hole that they're never going to get out of until they do it for themselves.
People are kept in ignorance, though, aren't they, Mike? We don't really. I mean, it takes. For me, it took trauma for me to start waking up to this reality that I'm in. That this world is not what I perceived from childhood. It took trauma to break me out of that loop. Most people are just stuck in the subconscious, living the 95% of their day through that subconscious programming, and it's all programming. That's what they think. I say this all the time. You're born into trauma. You're thrown into an indoctrination camp, which they class as school at 4-year-old, and then you're taught to be a good citizen, to go to work and basically work till you drop dead and pay your taxes, and then you're basically thrown back into it again if there's a reincarnation loop, and people don't tend to come out of it.
You are enticed to create this small comfort zone. And that small comfort zone is your limitations. And your limitations, you won't allow yourself to go out of your comfort zone because you feel threatened by it. And people have given up their freedoms in exchange for a false sense of security. And that's what it is. Every time there's something that seems to be more threatening to us and our freedoms, they go, well, I won't go past this line. I won't let it happen here. They always draw the line at the front door. Well, if it ever gets to your front door, it's too late. It's done. You know,
Yeah.
don't draw your line at your front door. You draw the line at what you're willing to do, and if you're not willing to stand up for yourself and your family, then you might as well just stay on your knees, because
Yeah.
it's not really about it's not about what's happening. It's about thinking for yourself, because we've become so accustomed to allowing others to think for us, others to act for us, others to do things in our best interest, when in reality, whether it's a being on a different dimension or it's a person here, they're only going to do what's in their best interest. So
Yes.
if we're 100,000 people are relying on this senator to do what's best for them, he's only going to do what's best for him. Screw everybody else, because that's what everybody else is going to do. And so we become lazy and complacent, believing that if we just stay that way, our lives will just kind of level off. It's going to get better. Oh, it's just going to get better. You bought into this drug called hope. Hopium is what people call it, because it's false. It's a falsehood. It's always
Yeah.
thinking, oh, it's just going to get better. When you don't do anything. If you want things to get better, you have to do something about it. You have to become independent and self-reliant and think for your damn self. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Question it. If you hear something and you're so used to, well, it doesn't really sound right, but yeah, okay, that's okay. I don't have time to mess around with that right now. Well, if you have enough of those, then you'll never know what truth is. You'll never know anything. And you'll be bought into a system that you'll never get out of, because by the time, if you do realize it, it's way too late. Because once you've lost so many freedoms, then eventually you'll never get them back.
Very, very powerful messages, those, Mike. And it dawned very, very much on me in 2020 when a minority was prepared to just basically question the narrative that was being thrown about. And I remember speaking to loved ones. Most loved ones distanced themselves from me during that period of time. But it was like a loved one would be going, "Look, Anthony, everything's going to be fine. There's always someone cleverer, smarter, in a better position to sort this mess out. So you don't worry about it." These are the things that I was getting. I'm like, well, if I don't stand up for my son and my daughter that's potentially going to have some toxic injection that we don't want put into their bodies, who is going to stand up for them? Because it had to be me.
Yep. Yeah, and it's with everything now. It's gotten to the point where now they don't even try to hide what's going on. Now it's blatantly just, they say it, and people go, "Oh, well, that's not right. I don't know where that came from. That just doesn't make any sense." Blah blah blah. Well, whether you believe it makes sense or not, it means that the train is already going through town. You're not going to stop this locomotive. You can stand in front of it, but the train is not. You're not going to stop it by yourself.
Yeah.
We need more people to stand up for it. And you're only standing up for the rights that you should have, and that you already have on paper, but it doesn't mean that you really have them. Just because it says it on paper doesn't mean anybody else is going to follow the rules. The rules were written in order for us to follow. They weren't written for anybody else.
That's right.
They were written for us. The top doesn't follow the rules. They make the rules, but they don't follow them. The rules are only intended for us. That's why when people say, well, all those people made all that money off of that and they screwed us on our taxes, but we don't get anything for it. When are those people going to go to jail? They're not going to go to jail. They were never meant to go to jail. They knew that even if they got caught, they're going to hold a committee, and the committee's going to say, yeah, that should never happen. We'll have to do something about it. And it'll never happen, because that doesn't happen. We're here to pay the bills for all the people on the top. We're here all holding the weight of others on top of us. And nothing's ever going to happen, because having a committee and going this big kangaroo court is always a way for people to think, yeah, it's going to happen now. They're really going to take care of them now. They're going to help us out. Oh, the money never comes back, and the people never get, or they'll find one patsy, they'll throw them in jail, and that's the end of that. The lowest guy on the totem pole ends up taking it, and everybody else walks away, and they're like, oh, that should never happen. But nobody ever does anything about it. And they know that. They know that the public is never going to stand up for it. Now, at one point, they would have said, we're stringing them up on the light pole, and that would have happened. And that's when people were a lot more aware of what was going on, and they were willing to go out in force and take care of business. Because nowadays, people will bitch about it. They'll sit on the computer and they'll say everything, but they won't do anything about
it. They play the long game, though, don't they, Mike? That's the thing. They know that they would have played this for a long period, where they get the TV in place and people are just on. It's MK Ultra, isn't it? They just keep everyone in that box. That's what they do.
Yeah,
and nobody can look out of it.
I call it the psycho-illogical operation, because where we're at is right here. They're 10,000 miles ahead of us. So by the time we figure out what they've done, they've got 500,000 other operations going on. Because we're playing, trying to play catch up on something that they're so far ahead that you're never going to figure it out. It's not about playing catch up. It's about getting yourself mentally and psychologically out of the game, so that you're not playing that anymore. You're not freely giving away your energy. You're not freely just giving up into the system. You're beginning to think for yourself, and you're beginning to look inwards, and you're working on taking your energy back. Because what happens is, like I said about taking your energy back, is when you do that, you weaken them. Right now, they're the predators, and we're their prey. We're their cattle. We feed them. We want to reverse the roles. So we're the predator and they're the prey. When we become the predators, it changes the whole dynamic of our situation. And then things begin to change. We get enough of predators against them, then things begin to flip the script, because then their system doesn't work. It doesn't work on self-reliant, free-thinking people. When you're not falling into the drama, when you're not falling into all this BS, then you become a different entity within their system. And that's what we need. We need free thinkers and people that work against the system, not people that feed into the system. So don't be the cattle. Don't be the sheep. Become the predator in the system, because that's what they don't want. That's what they fear. There's no reason for us to fear anything, because we can't be killed. I mean, physically, your body can die. But energy-wise, we are just basic energy with no mass. We're consciousness. We'll survive no matter what. But we have the ability to do things that we don't even understand or have a belief in. And that's what I began to look into. That's where I was seeing. I'm seeing from the other side. So if I'm looking into a mirror physically, I've seen what happens on the other side of that mirror. I've seen both sides of the mirror, and I understand there's a duality that we have, or probably more than duality, and I've seen just a smidgen of what we're capable of. But I can't relay that to anybody else. I can't. If you can't experience, you can't understand what you haven't experienced.
Yeah.
And you can't unexperience something that you have experienced. So when I tell people about my experiences, it's just a bunch of words, and I put it in the best way that I can to share with other people. But that in no way gives you insight into what really occurred in those experiences. It's just a small little piece of what I'm saying. And it might not mean anything to anybody else but me, because I understand what it's about, but you've only got 26 letters that you can put into words and sentences and paragraphs. You're very limited to to what you can say that really has meaning to other people. And if I don't use the exact words that portrays that to them, it doesn't really work out that way. So what I try to do is provide tools to people so that they can get themselves thinking. Don't rely on me. Don't rely on anybody else. Rely on yourself and start to look inward. What I try to do is supply tools to help make you more aware of what's going on around you and what you can do to make yourself more powerful in your own life. Because we have to all live here every single day. You know, we're all stuck in these lives. We're stuck in this prison. So since we have to be here, then there's ways that there's things that we can do in order to make ourselves more powerful. And that's what I try to promote.
Yeah, the inward role is the way forward completely, isn't it? It's the kingdom is within, as they say. You know, I mean, I know, not being religious in any shape or form, but there's a lot of there's a lot of good hints in scripture to where we should be going, and the inner work is the way, and the awareness that actually this is a whole game. We're just in a big fucking video game at the moment,
Right.
and that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. It's a game, but it's not our game. That's the problem. You know, we're playing a game where we show up to the game. We don't know any rules. I mean, we know rules about what we can't do, but we don't know what we can do. And we're playing against a seasoned professional team, top of the line, and we're wandering around just getting knocked the hell out all over the game without a clue, because we come here fully mind wiped. So it's like showing up to a gunfight without even any pants, let alone guns or knives or anything. Here we are, a bunch of stupid morons showing up, and we're just getting knocked the hell out everywhere. It's like there's no chance. So once we begin to get inside and figure out what's going on, that all these rules are against us and they don't exist, then we can begin to see what's going on. The rules are meant to just keep you more and more self-absorbed in the game, and they keep you more and more against yourself. Those rules work against you. They don't work for you. They work for the other team. And that's the whole reason behind them. And the more you buy into them, the more you're going to lose.
You know, when you're having these out-of-body experiences, and it's consciousness that's there, isn't it? I always had this belief that our brain is like a transmitter, if you like. So we were able to kind of bring in that information and try and figure things out. But if you're away from your body, you're still doing that, aren't you? So you don't need any physicality, do you?
It's me. It's totally me. Yeah. It's completely me. But the difference, let me tell you what the difference is. Now, when you're experiencing it over and over, you kind of get into a mindset where you write your experiences down and you really don't think about a lot, because I don't know, you have to really think about what you're thinking about. So I realized, wait, there's no fear there. There is no emotions. There is no anything. I'm there, but I don't fall victim to all this drama and stuff. It doesn't exist there. In our natural state, there isn't any of that crap. I don't have all these weird, stupid thoughts popping in my head, because I don't have that. Yeah. I'm not existing in a place where that exists, or I don't have those drama-inducing attributes. All those feelings and emotions are physical attributes. They're not anything that is realistic within our natural state. So those don't exist. There just isn't that mind chatter. There isn't that other stuff. We don't need any of this stuff. The brain is just a physical thing that we use for our daily lives. I really don't know what the process of it is, but if I can be without it and fully functional to telepathically and everything, I don't need that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's none of that stuff is needed. It's
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
like an anchor. Really, the physical body feels to me when I'm in those situations like an anchor because I'm not using my eyes to see. I'm not using my mouth or any of my organs like that to talk. So, I mean, our physical body is for the physical three-dimensional world. That's all it's for. We don't need, we only rely on it because we're here. But when we're not here, we don't rely on it.
You know, we're able to manifest on this physical realm. And it's usually quite slow because we're in a dense 3D kind of reality. Have you had experiences where you've been able to manifest in the different realities sort of instantaneously, if you like? Have you attempted those kind of things?
Well, your manifestation is based upon your energy and that sort of thing. And that's why when I say, to reabsorb your energy, that's and that's done in a non-physical way because you're in a different state. I get people in a different state of mind so they can reabsorb that energy in order for us to take it back. But the other thing is we are creators. And the whole
Mm,
one of really the purpose behind is reabsorbing our energy is to get us to uh, reconnect with how we create ourselves. We are creators within ourselves. So what we're doing is we're using our consciousness to pinpoint focus on something like taking back our energy, which is an exercise to get us to go back to the way we normally are. So it's not just to do that, but what it does is it creates something in us that gets us familiar with what we're able to do. But until you've done it, you don't realize it. And until
mm,
you've done it, you won't see it. So when you think about something here in the physical realm, it really doesn't do much. But if you're working non physically, it's on a completely different level. And as you begin to see there's more levels of a consciousness, then you're able to do more things. But
mhm.
yeah, just by going into those other realms and by consciously being aware and by choosing to make choices, then I've changed the landscape around me because
Right.
they don't want somebody who's a free thinker that wants to go in there and see what they can do. They want somebody to go there subconsciously and just listen and take on orders.
That's great, that, because then you are the artist in that respect. You're going there with your canvas and everything else, and you can paint the picture you want, can't you? Because you're in charge, basically. It's your reality then.
Right, right. Because we go there and it's like you're this energy source, and they see you for who and what you really are. But they're not going to tell you what it is.
Mm,
And so when you go there, you're on a completely different level of understanding. You begin to see what's going on. And I believe at some because when people say, "Well, weren't you fearful?" and I think it should be actually flipped around the other way, and they should ask me, "Were they fearful of us?" Which is the
yeah.
reality of the question of what they really should be. Because if if they believed that I was going to offer, if that I was going to help them, then they would be open for that. That's why they tried to get me to buy into that. But
Yeah.
the fact that when I became cognizant of what going on, and I started to ask, that I believe they felt threatened at that point. And when they felt threatened, there was nothing there for them to be able to buy it from. They weren't going to sell me anything. Now I was open to understanding what was going on. They didn't like that. And I do believe they did feel threatened at some point, and that's why they weren't going to hang around because I wasn't feeding into their needs
Okay.
or what they wanted. So they left. So I believe that what's over us right now understands we have a lot of potential, and that's why the levels of manipulation must stay very high. But if we were ever to turn the tide, then they will definitely fear that from us. And
Mm,
so we have the ability to become predators because we have the ability to create. And I
Yeah.
believe what we can create is much farther and much stronger than what they could ever imagine. And that's why we're being kept so dumbed down and so under control. Because if we were just some docile creature, then they could just come in here and just mow us down and go, do what they want. But the fact that they have to manipulate us means a whole lot more to me than what most people would think. So
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. I completely agree with you. It's for me. I've been saying since 2020, this is a time of trying to remember who we truly are. I think it's people say the Great Awakening, don't they? But I don't think it is as such as that. I think there's only a minority, unfortunately, but we only need a minority. We only need a certain percentage to flip this, really.
right, and what they like to do is if they see a move, away from what they want us to do, then they'll intercept into that movement and they'll put in their misinformation and disinformation in there in order to get it to go into the direction they want. But when there's a lot of things that's happening, we're not buying into no more of that majority crap. We understand the whole metaphysical and spiritual movements have been hijacked, but these other individual movements, they can't redirect them like they want to. So as long as we keep redirecting ourselves in the direction that we choose, they don't have any control over that. They can attack us individually, they can create resistance, they can do a lot of things, but overall, they can't do anything about it if we really push forward. If we decide that we're going to run our own our own our own gig, they can't do anything about it.
Mm. And it basically answers everything what you're saying in terms of why they do what they do, in terms of dumbing us down, like you say, with the TV and education and any distraction possible, and then they'll create saviors for people. So be it, like you say, religious, it will be Jesus is going to come and save us, or it could be now Donald Trump's going to come and save us,
Right.
and that's what they're doing. And I've got a lot of friends from these past few years they've bought into Donald Trump, and I've always said, look, I'd love to be wrong, but I don't have a savior. There's only me who's going to save me. Unfortunately, there's no billionaire politician actor, because that's what he is to me, is going to save anyone. Like you said, they're only in it for themselves. They're gaining something for themselves, not for us.
I mean, there's always going to be, it's a tennis match. You're going to lose a little bit, then you're going to win a little bit, then you're going to lose a little bit. They're not going to give you anything substantial. They're going to make you feel like you're on top for a little while, then you're going to go back down to the bottom. Then you go back on top for a while. It's always going to be flip flopping. You're never going to win playing the system. It's like going to Vegas or going, you're playing the machines. You might win. Oh, you win pretty big, and then you're going to lose a whole hell of a lot. Then you might win a little bit more. Then it's like going to the casino.
Yeah.
And it's meant to keep you up and down and up and down. You're never going to go straight across or stay on top. It's not going to happen that way. They give you a little bit to make you think you're doing well, and then they're going to throw you right back down to the bottom. Then you might get a little bit more, and then you go back down. It's always it's that game. Oh, I'm doing pretty good now. I think we're going to stay there for a while. It's the game. It's always going to be that game. And anytime people are on the top, they're like, yeah, there's no reason for me to do anything right now. I'm doing good. I'm staying on the top. It's always going to play you. It's just the game that plays you.
Yeah. Stop playing the game.
Right.
Just stop playing the game. So I'm interested as well when you're talking about the dream state. So I've recently started, for whatever reason, probably because of my awareness, I don't know, but I've started becoming more lucid when I'm in a dream state. And I had a recent, well, this past year, I've had 3 people come into my dreams, Mike. And this recent one was I walked into a room and I instantly knew something was wrong as I walked into this room in my dream. And I recognized an individual that was in that room that shouldn't have been there. And I remember saying to him, "What are you doing in my dream?" You know, it was almost like he'd infiltrated. And we had in the dream, we actually had a physical wrestle in the dream. I mean, what in your experience, what is that was going on there?
Manipulation. And what they can do is they can show you in your dream that they're in control, because you can have somebody that you really dislike would come into your house and you would
Mm,
allow it to happen. Why? Because they have basically controlled you. So what you're doing is, in your dream state, the subconsciousness is control of that, and you're in the your consciousness is back here.
mm,
And when things are happening in your dream that you wouldn't necessarily agree with, your consciousness can push that conscious, your subconscious will push that consciousness back and let it know that it can control that process.
mm,
Even though you're aware of it, it will allow whatever it decides to do in there. Unless you're fully consciousness within that dream, you can't control it. But what it can do is it can show you that it is in control. And I run into this quite a bit. Even though I've gotten control of a lot of my dreams, I still run into it, no matter
mm,
how diligent I work at it, because I'm not going to beat it at its game.
mm,
I have to control the narrative in order for me to be in control. So there's no reason to really for me to fight it at its game. I need to flip the narrative,
yeah.
because the illusional manipulation of control is what they are masters at. And to try to beat them at that game is most likely not going to work. And that's why when I say people think when they die, excuse me, I'm not going to I'm not going to agree to this, or I'm not going to. No, you're going to agree whatever they want you to agree, because you're going to be consciously there, but the subconsciousness will put you in this illusional drug-like state to where
Mm,
you'll agree to whatever it decides you want to agree to. So
mm,
if you're relying on getting to passing away and then making this decision or not making this decision, you'll never be able to uh, to beat their mastery at that game.
mm.
Because what'll happen is you'll get there and then it'll just override you, because it's simple. Because their illusional drug-like states will run this system.
Okay. You've had 30 years at this, Mike. You know, what would you say to someone who's watching this and going, "Well, you know, I'd like to become to find a solution to this for myself." Um, is there a because you've worked at it for so long? Do they have to work at it for that length of time? Or are we talking? Is there a simple way of dealing with this?
Well, this was never my intention. I mean, when I got into it with the interest in astral projection, this wasn't my idea in the beginning to do any of this.
Mm,
Even down the
yeah,
line, that wasn't what I thought it was going to do.
yeah,
But I got to a certain point in life, because I'm a technical person. I need to know why things do work a certain way, and how it works and that sort of thing. So, I don't know. Some people might be more possibly connected and be able to do things a lot quicker than I did, but this wasn't my intention. I kind of
mm,
just went along this pathway and just kept following it down the line, and ended up where I'm at right now. I'm not saying I'm at the end of the path. I just keep on going. But I don't know. I mean, I tell people, if you're interested in something, follow the path that that leads you to where you want to go. Um, but I'm just here to make things available so that you can find out for yourself, because there's no what I would say, there's no substitute for experience and personal perspective.
yeah,
If you once you experience something that but when I say people experience these near death experiences and stuff like that, you're going to experience what they want you to experience. And that's what I began in the beginning. That I was experience what they chose for me to experience, and I had to look behind the scenes of what was going on. So realize that manipulation and the illusionary level are very strong. So don't always just think that you experience something once and that's the way that it is, because that's not what it is.
Mm.
You have to be able to see beyond the veil, behind the production of what's being proposed to you. You have to understand that, because everybody knows that when they watch a movie, that at some point behind there that it was a full production in order to make this believable and lifelike. We'll
Yeah.
all understand that what you see is most likely a production, and behind that is what you really want to understand.
So you've on your channel, you've got some of this kind of laid out, haven't you? I know that
Right.
and you've got these in your books as well. So these are the ideal places for people to go to check your channel out, to have a look at these solutions, um,
Yeah,
and
I mean
start the inner work.
everything that's in my books and in my videos, and I cover through interviews. Everything is all in everything that I produce for free.
Yeah, yeah,
So, if you want to know what's in my books, you can watch my videos or whatever. I don't everything is included in everything. I have everything laid out, and I go through it over and over in the videos that I create for my channels. I have a
yeah,
Rumble channel, which is My Dark Explorations, and I have a YouTube channel, My Dark Explorations. And a lot of the books that I have on Kindle are also audiobooks on that I made for my channel. So if somebody can't access those, I know some countries like New Zealand and Australia, they have a problem getting
okay.
in touch with my Kindle books. So
Yeah,
that's why that I made the audiobooks, those same
that's really good.
audiobooks available on my YouTube and Rumble channels, so they can access them through there. They don't have to be able to get the books.
That's really good, Mike. That's really good because it's clear that you're not in it for any other purpose but to help people. It's quite
Right. I
obvious.
mean, because what I tell people is, and this is very true, the harder I work for my benefit, the more it helps you. And
Mm.
the harder you work for your benefit, the more it helps me and everybody else. So
Yeah,
for
yeah,
everybody who works from within, helps everybody else. So anything that I do is helping others, and anything that you do is going to help others as well. It's either going
mm,
to help or work against. So we all these people that are working against this, that are working for the system, that are making it harder on us, and there are people that work for the system. I mean, work against the system to make it beneficial for everybody else. So you have to choose where you're going to go. Either you're going to go work for all of us, or you're going to work against all of us for yourself.
yeah,
So people need to decide what you're going to work at. And remember, if you're working against all of us, then eventually, because the other side will has no problem eating its own. So when they
mm,
dump you off into the gutter, just remember all the ones that you stepped on getting to your spot are all going to be there waiting for you when you're thrown down, when they get rid of you. So always choose sides with the understanding that you're going to have to live with the same ones that you're stepping on or
mm.
helping with.
That's true. That's very true. Have you seen have you witnessed any change in the past few years where people are becoming more consciously aware of the reality that we're in? Has that been a change? Because obviously you've been doing this for many years. As things moved forward?
It's hard. I do uh, come in contact with people that are very, very in touch with what's going on and are working very diligently to try to help out all of us. But then again, on the other side, I do come in contact with people that seem to be somewhat in touch with the reality of our situation, but choose to decide for themselves what they want to do, and they
Mm,
want to keep in touch with their uh, more physical side of things so that they keep their level of, I guess, integrity or level of what they feel to be more physically true to their self. So, it's both. I kind of see both sides, but in more times than not, I see people not wanting to leave their what I would call their comfort zones and their
Yeah,
limitation. They're
yeah,
they're not willing to look out or push out, and they don't want to stand up to be seen as, oh, you're an outsider. You know, you're not one of us. So everybody wants to be within a group,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I've never been one type of a person to be in a group. I've always been an individual. So for me, it's never meant anything to be within this special group. So I've always worked alone. And for me, that's just been the way things are.
Well, I certainly hope that the messages that you're getting out there, Mike, and I know that you've had plenty of interviews in the past 12 months at least. I hope people are listening. I hope people are tuning in and hearing your messages, and I think a lot of people sort of who I know are still in that 3D. They're very much still in that 3D paradigm. They think I'm crazy at the best of times. So we're still a long way to go, I think. But in my experience in the past few years, there are definitely more people questioning reality. That this isn't just a 3D world. This isn't just a place where you do a 9 to 5 job, take a pension, and have a holiday every year, and then drop dead, and God knows what else what happens. I think
Right.
people are starting to
Exactly.
go,
Yeah.
there's something a little bit interesting going on in this reality. And actually, I'm a believer that we are special. I believe that we are divine sparks, if you like, in that Gnostic sense. I think that we can create, and there is magic in this world. And although it's a dense 3D and they do have manipulation on us, if we remember who we are truly, then we can create a much better experience for ourselves moving forward. I believe that.
Right. But if you don't put forth the effort, you're not going to remember anything and you're not going to get anywhere. The only way we're going to get somewhere is if we work diligently towards that. And
Yeah, yeah,
and you can't just sit down every time there's a roadblock or be discouraged. You have to just kind of move ahead and blow through it. And there's no real secret to getting somewhere to get us out of this, other than the fact that you have to be diligent and you
mm,
have to be willing to put forth the effort. And there's really no substitute for that.
yeah, yeah. It's an individual journey, this, isn't it? This
Right.
is an
It's an
individual
individual
master.
journey, but if you want to help others, then and share that information, that's up to you, but you have to but those people need to be willing to accept within themselves that they have the ability to do it and move on
Yeah,
and
yeah,
move ahead.
yeah. Mike, I want to thank you so much for your time. There's some very powerful messages there, really important messages that I hope gets out there. Keep doing your great work, Mike, because it is important. And hopefully, I'll see you on the Astral if I can get mastery on this myself. There was one thing that's interesting before we do go. You mentioned on a couple of your videos. I thought I'd just grab this quickly. That you've not only gone into 3D kind of scenarios, you've landed on 2D as well, haven't you? So it's almost pen and paper drawings, and that's the kind of strange realities we can encounter if we go into this.
Yeah, I believe the reason why I saw those is just so that I could see the fact that there is so much out there that we just can't really even imagine. I would have never imagined
Yeah,
being um, conscious
yeah,
and just having the ability to exist within that same realm with them right next to me. It was just kind of mind blowing. You just really, it's just not something that you can forget. So
yeah, yeah. Mike, I'm going to carry on watching your videos. I'm going to hopefully stay in touch with you as well, and I'd love to do this again sometime in the future. Let's keep getting these messages out. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate everything you're doing, brother.
Well, I appreciate you having me and helping me spread the word.
You're a good man. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.